the most difficult truth we have to accept. Before we begin, I want you to pause. Think back to your childhood. Remember how you learned. Perhaps you had stacks of notebooks filled with uneven handwriting. Maybe you recall the smell of a new book you opened for the first time, or that nervous tremor before going to the board to answer. And now look at your children, or your students. They sit in front of screens for hours, at school, at home, on the bus. Their eyes glow with blue light and their fingers mindlessly scroll through feeds. And somewhere deep down, you feel something is wrong. You can't prove it. You don't have analytical reports. But when your daughter, who used to love reading, can no longer finish a movie without checking her phone, when your student, who could solve complex equations, now gives answers but can't explain how he got there, you know, something is broken. Let me say what is feared to be spoken aloud in schools and universities. Our children are less cognitively capable than we were at their age. This is not a provocation. This is not nostalgia for the good old days. This is a fact, confirmed by tens of thousands of scientific studies. And if you are ready to hear it, we begin. Part 1. The illusion of unbreakable progress. Humanity has gotten used to progressing. Look at the graphs of the 19th, 20th centuries. Each new generation was healthier, happier, and more educated than the previous one. This was such a stable trend that we began to perceive it as a law of nature. Our children will inevitably be smarter than us. But since around 2000, this law has ceased to apply. Let's look at the facts that cannot be brushed aside. Memory. Research by Graves and his colleagues 2021 showed that memory scores in children are steadily declining. What an ordinary 14-year-old could memorize 20 years ago now requires the effort of a college student. Attention! The meta-analysis by Andrzejewski 2024, which covered 3 decades of research, leaves no doubt. The ability to concentrate is rapidly declining, and it's not that children are just different, it's that children are worse at maintaining focus. Literacy. Pearls 2021. An international study of reading literacy recorded a decline of 27 points. This is the largest drop in the history of the study. But the most interesting part? When the US conducted simultaneous paper and digital testing, the results on computers were so terrible that they simply were not published. Creativity. Kim, 2011-2021, analyzed the results of the Torrance tests, the gold standard for measuring creativity. Since 1990, indicators of creative thinking in children have been steadily declining. We are preparing a generation that knows how to consume but cannot create. IQ. Finally, the scariest part. Throughout the 20th century, IQ increased, on average, by 3 points per decade. This phenomenon is called the Flynn effect. But Dutton and Lin, 2016, analyzed data from the last 20 years and found that in most Western countries, IQ is declining for the first time in the history of standardized measurements. And you know what's the worst part? In countries where schools have remained traditional, where they still write with chalk on blackboards and read paper books, IQ continues to rise. This is not a coincidence. This is a diagnosis. Part 2. Blind spot. When we talk about the childhood crisis, we usually blame smartphones and social networks. John Twenge wrote about the iGen generation. Jonathan Haidt, author of The Coddling of the American Mind, brilliantly showed how phones are destroying the mental health of teenagers. And they are right. The mental health of children has indeed declined. Anxiety, depression, loneliness, everything has increased. But there is one detail they do not explain. If the problem is only with smartphones, why are children learning worse? Why do they know less? Why don't they understand what they read? Because while we were looking at phones in our pockets, something bigger quietly entered our education. In 2000, the educational technology edtech market was niche. Today, it is a $400 billion industry. 88% of school districts in the US operate under one student, one device programs. In Britain, schools spend 3 times more on technology than on teacher training. In Australia, there are 450,000 more computers in classrooms than students who could use them. We were sold the idea. Technology will make learning more effective, faster, more interesting. Twice as much knowledge in half the time. Remember that slogan? But let's stop and ask ourselves, what if it was a lie? Not just an exaggeration, not just a marketing ploy, a systematic, well thought out, well paid lie. Part 3: The True Cost of Progress. In 1970, Ford released the Pinto, a cheap car that was supposed to conquer America. It indeed conquered, until people noticed one detail. The gas tank was installed so poorly that even a light collision turned the car into a torch. The engineers knew about this. They calculated that fixing the problem would cost $11 per car. But management decided it was cheaper to pay compensation to the families of the deceased than to rework the assembly line. History does not like to be forgotten. Today, we have our own Pinto. We are told that technology in school is about the future, about innovation, about preparing for adult life. But let's look at what independent research says. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, conducted a large-scale PISA study and concluded students who use computers very frequently at school show significantly worse results in most subjects. The MIT Poverty Action Lab analyzed 126 studies and stated initiatives that expand access to computers do not improve academic performance. Online courses reduce academic achievement compared to in-person learning. A study of 300,000 American students showed even a small daily use of digital devices, here 30 minutes, is negatively associated with reading test scores. And the most ironic part, a separate analysis proved that investments in air conditioning have a greater positive impact on learning than investments in laptops for every student. Read that again. Air conditioners are more beneficial than innovative technologies. We didn't just waste billions for nothing. We spent them on things that harm our children. Part 4. Who are the Luddites really? I want to tell you a story that almost no one knows. At the beginning of the 19th century, weavers in England faced the threat of extinction. New machines, mechanical looms, produced fabric faster and cheaper than the best artisans. Thousands of people lost their jobs, their craftsmanship, their sense of life. And then they began to break the machines. These people called themselves Luddites. History has turned them into a caricature, stupid peasants who feared technologies they did not understand. Today, Luddite is an insult, a label for those who cannot keep up with progress. But the truth is quite different. The Luddites were not against machines. They had worked with machines for generations. They were against the values that these machines brought with them. The new looms did not just weave faster, they devalued craftsmanship. They destroyed communities by gathering people into factory barracks. They replaced the human eye and human hands with soulless machinery. The Luddites lost that war, but they left us with a question that still hangs in the air. Are we ready to embrace new technologies without asking ourselves what price we will pay for them? Today, the arena of battle is not factories, but schools. The tools are not machines, but iPads, laptops, and smartboards. But the question remains the same. Part 5. What to do about it. Course Roadmap. You are not here by accident. You sense the smoke, even if others say there is no fire, and you want to know what to do. The next 7 modules are not just information, they are weapons. Here's where we will go. Module 2. Debunking Myths. We will dissect the 5 main lies that EdTech marketers have fed us. Kids learn differently. Technology personalizes learning. Screens increase engagement. We will show you why this doesn't work. Module 3. Evidence. We will dive into the research. Meta-analysis, effect sizes, comparisons of paper and screen. You will learn to read scientific articles in a way that no vendor can deceive you. Module 4. Biology. Why the brain is not designed for multitasking, what is empathic resonance, and why will a computer never replicate it? How does knowledge transfer work in real life, and why do screens kill it? Module 5, Special Cases, Smartphones, Artificial Intelligence, the 2 most dangerous technologies in your child's life. We will analyze the mechanisms of addiction, sleep destruction, data theft, and the formation of false identity through AI. Module 6. What to do at home. How to unite with other parents. How to write letters to the school demanding a refusal of technology. How to conduct a family tech audit. How to implement screen-free weekends. Module 7. What to do in class. For teachers, specific techniques. how to replace Kahoot with a live game, how to teach children to take notes by hand, how to defend the right not to use technology, Module 8, what to do in school, for administrators, a roadmap for change, technology audit, creating a school philosophy, complete ban on phones, technology-free weeks. Part 6, your choice. In the late 1960s, psychologists Latané and Dali conducted a simple experiment. They placed a student in a waiting room, asked them to fill out a questionnaire, and began to release smoke through the ventilation. When the student was alone in the room, 75% got up and went to report the problem. But when there were 2 or 3 strangers in the room, stooges who sat indifferently in the smoke, only 12% reacted. The others just sat and breathed in the poison. Why? Because in an ambiguous situation, we look to others. If no one panics, then everything is fine. Today there is smoke around us. Our children cannot focus, do not remember what they read, are losing interest in learning. But we look around and see schools handing out iPads, teachers assigning homework through apps, other parents buying smartphones for 8-year-olds. No one is panicking, and we sit in the smoke. I don't know if you are ready to get up. I don't know if you are ready to be the one to break the silence. But I know one thing. If not us, then who? The Luddites lost, but their spirit is alive. They reminded us that progress is not just new toys, it is a choice of values that we defend. I made my choice. I am a Luddite. What about you?